That's not the case in Ohio's urban areas, which went overwhelmingly for Democrat Hillary Clinton in 2016. Her 8 county wins were in Ohio's most populous and diverse areas. Exit polls for CNN showed black voters favored Clinton by 89%, Latino voters by 66%, and Asian voters by 65%. Democrats in Ohio say they're working to hang on to those voters, while Republicans have been hoping to make dents in those margins. Statehouse correspondent Andy Chow reports.
You like a Democratic sample ballot? You guys like a Democratic sample ballot?
Daniel Shepard is spending his afternoon on this chilly, rainy Monday handing out sample ballots for the Democratic Party.
19 ballots?
As thousands of people line up at the early voting center in Franklin County, Shepard, a Joe Biden supporter, wants to make sure every voter has a chance to have this sample ballot in their hands.
Trump has used a far-right platform as a way to gain, for political gain. And I feel now is the only opportunity to stop him.
Shepard of Columbus says there are 3 main issues that stick out in this presidential race: income inequality, racial tension, and what he calls an overall acceptance of division. Shepard says racial tension and inequality are issues people of color have faced for centuries. However, he says the rhetoric and actions of President Donald Trump makes this election different.
I think he's using it as a tool to further his agenda. And I think that is destructive because you're empowering individuals who has the guns and the resources to capitalize on his racism.
But you'll hear a much different message at this rally in Westerville, just 10 miles north of the early voting center, where people are gathered for the Black Voices for Trump event at the campaign's headquarters. Trump supporter Kelli Clark of Lithopolis says she's excited as the race enters its final days.
What he stands for, I agree with. I agree with immigrants coming in the legal way. I agree with life, pro-life. I agree with his stand with the Air Force or the military. I have a son who's in the Army, and I believe that he will keep supporting my son there while he fights for our country.
The speakers at this rally say there's a false narrative during elections that says African Americans must vote for Democrats. Clark grew up hearing that same message, but made the switch to the Republican Party in 2008 when Barack Obama ran for president.
I was told vote for him because he's black. I didn't do that then, and I'm not doing it now. I'm not gonna, it's more than that. It's not about your color. It's about what you're gonna do when you're in office. Trump has proved what he's doing. He stands by what he says. He drained the swamp.
But most national polls of voters who are black show a strong support for Joe Biden at nearly 85%, while Donald Trump's poll numbers with black voters hover around the low teens. The Pew Research Center says 2020 could have the highest turnout of black voters in U.S. history, with about 30 million black people eligible to vote. In Ohio, there are about 1 million eligible black voters, making up about 12% of the state's electorate. National reports indicate black voters, especially black women, can make or break this presidential election in swing states. Among people of color, the second largest group of voters in Ohio are Hispanic and Latinx, with more than 241,000 people eligible to vote. That's about 2.7% of the total voting population. Jose Luis Mas, with the Ohio Hispanic Coalition, says in their voter engagement programs, they hear 3 big issues raised: immigration, education, and health care. As Mas explains, Hispanic voters can bring a different elections perspective, such as those who have immigrated from Latin American countries.
Now, those individuals are citizens of the United States, and they would have some ideas concerning universal health care and the responsibilities of the government.
Biden tends to lead Trump in polls among Hispanic voters by a 20 to 30 point margin, while Trump maintains about a third of the support among this group of voters. Of course, no racial group votes with one voice, and Moss says that's especially relevant among Latinx American immigrants who come from various countries with different government structures and religious beliefs. For example, Moss believes the ties between Latinx and the Catholic Church play a role in embracing Trump on his anti-abortion stance. Other voters who have immigrated from countries controlled by socialists have said that's why they support Trump. Asian Americans make up about 1% of Ohio's electorate. Elaine Tsao is CEO of Asian Services in Action, or ASIA, which provides health and human services to immigrant and refugee communities. For the election, Asia has been working with groups like Asian American Pacific Islander Vote. She says the economy is a top issue among Asian American voters, many of whom own or work for small businesses. And the COVID-19 pandemic is bringing additional challenges, with reports of ramped-up tension and aggression against Asian Americans. Trump has labeled it the China virus, the China plague, and has even used the racist term Kung Flu. Meanwhile, Asian unemployment is recovering at a slower rate than other groups.
Within the Asian community, there has been a significant backlash, just because of the narrative about the origins of the coronavirus, and community members that Asia serves has felt that impact as well. So, that's another reason that the community members are extremely motivated this year more than ever to make sure that their voice is heard at the polls.
Making sure voices are heard is the driving force behind Kayla Griffin's group, All Voting is Local. She says the voter rights organization works to ensure that everyone has equal access to the ballot. That includes fighting to get extra drop boxes in Ohio's counties. Griffin says the one drop box per county rule disproportionately affects Black voters. 78% of that population lives in the sixth most populated counties. While the battle for equal access is ongoing, Griffin has a message to the people who might feel disheartened.
If you are discouraged, the first tool that you have is voting. I say voting is the front door to the mansion of democracy. You cannot anticipate equity or equality in your community or for your folks if you are not engaging every tool necessary.
That's the spirit echoed in Daniel Shepard at the Franklin County Early Voting Center, who says the weather won't stop him from handing out sample ballots to voters.
Rain or shine, I'm going to be out here giving out these ballots.
Andy Chow, Statehouse News Bureau.